Hey gorgeous ones, it's Lucretia here. Happy Sunday. If you're in Australia, it's Sunday. Nice to see you all. For those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, my name is Lucretia and I am a psychic channel and an author. And one of the things I do is help women mainly, sometimes men, but primarily women, connect to their intuition, own that intuitive power that lies within all of us, and then help them to leverage that and understand how to manage it so they can get out there and really live their purpose on the planet, because we all have a purpose. Hey Nikki, nice to see you, honey. So we all have a purpose. So it's time to claim the power that's within you and get out there and do what you are here to do. Now, today I want to talk about something that has just come up in a conversation I had with a girlfriend a few days ago, and it's kind of playing along in the back of my mind, and I thought I'm just going to get on and have a bit of a chat about this. And it's to do with how we can sometimes let the things that have happened to us in the past, we bring them into our present and our future and contaminate it, and we can actually make ourselves really physically sick. Now, if you are someone who knows a little bit about this, you might have come across a woman called Louise Hay. So she wrote a lot of this kind of stuff about, she wrote a book called You Can Heal Your Life. And if you're interested in this topic, I suggest you go and check out her work. She's passed over now, but she did some amazing stuff around how our physical ailments are often reflective of our emotional state. So, and that brings me to one of the examples I was reflecting on earlier today, which is quite a few years ago, my dad had a number of different heart problems, and at one stage he had a minor heart attack that landed him in the local hospital. And obviously, thank goodness, that hasn't happened for a long time now, and he's getting out there and he's healthy, which is wonderful. But obviously that was a really scary experience, and I can remember being in the emergency department in a little curtained off cubicle. And my mum was there and my dad was in the bed, and the doctor came in to talk to us about what had happened with my dad, and explained that he had this minor heart issue, that it bubbled to the surface, and then what the next steps were. And there was one thing that stands out in my mind from that conversation with that medical professional. And he was talking about what causes heart attacks generally. And one of the causes he touched on was how sometimes people can actually get heart problems because of a broken heart, because they have suffered such a major incident or incidents of grief and associated sorrow that their heart gets damaged by that. And that causes heart attacks. Their heart gets broken. And if you want to know more about that, I suggest you go and do a bit of Googling. But to have a medical professional stand there and say that to me, and that was quite a few years ago now, really is an indication to me that I think this concept that our emotional state can affect our physical state, I think that's just proof of that. And I think it's another reason why we need to be really aware of our emotions and aware of how they can affect our lives. So not only affecting how we feel up here and our heart, but also how they affect people around us, but also how they affect the rest of our physical body. And in some cases, if that stuff isn't released from your physical body, it can actually break your heart and give you a heart attack, which is kind of extraordinary in one sense, but on the other hand makes complete sense to me anyway. I don't know about you. And the reason this was coming up for me is that I was talking to a girlfriend the other day, and she was reflecting on how this woman who in her past, who actually had really caused her a lot of grief and really disrupted her life and was not a kind person at all. This woman had bubbled back to the surface in her life on the fringes. And my friend was experiencing all of that anger and that pain, and I think rage as well, around this woman being back even on the fringes of her life when she thought she was finally rid of her. So, and she's telling me this story, and I had a bit of a conversation with her, and I said, okay, well, how are you going to get that out of you? Because you don't want to hold on to that, because it was clear to me that this friend of mine was still holding on to that stuff. She was still holding on to all that stuff. And we do this. You know, we have a negative experience with the person, and sometimes years, decades later, just the thought of that person will trigger us to feel all of that stuff again. And it courses through our bodies. And if you add on the extra layer, the fact that women aren't really encouraged to feel justified in having anger, to feel rage, to express that stuff, that can cause all kinds of stuff for us inside because we're not releasing it. We're not getting it out. And when we don't get it out, it affects our mental state, it affects our physical state. So I gave my friend a strategy which I wanted to share with you guys today as well, and I hope that it might help you too. Because we all have things in our past that continue often to contaminate our present and our future, simply because we haven't found a way to release it. And sometimes you might have to do a lot of releasing over quite a long period of time and a lot of healing to let go of things. Because we're emotional beings. And that's totally perfect. But I want to give you a strategy right now to help you to start to release maybe some of the more negative emotions that you are feeling and carrying from a situation that's happened to you before. And it's a really straightforward one. But interestingly, a lot of people find it quite confronting, because in order to do this activity, you have to really own how you're feeling and step out of the whole nice girl thing. You know how we're often told the whole thing about we need to be the nice girl, we need to take the higher ground, all that kind of thing. So what I'm suggesting to you is you've got to be able to claim those emotions and recognize those emotions and be okay with having them. That's the first thing. Because you are allowed to have rage and anger and sorrow and grief and pain and disappointment. You are allowed to experience all of those emotions. I'm giving you permission to own those for yourself. Because that's healthy. Because when you start pushing this stuff down, it stays inside and it will create health problems. It will create depression and anxiety and all those other kinds of things. Plus physical ailments. Some people actually age them when you look at them, when they hold on to their grief or their pain or their sorrow and they can't find a way to release that. You will see people physically age on the outside. So first of all, own these things about you and find as many ways as you can to get them out in a way that is safe for you. And one of the ways that I've found has been really safe for me to express some of my emotions and clear up some of those things I've dragged from the past into my present is that I sit down and I write a letter to the person who has created those feelings in me. Excuse me. So it could be, you know, an old best friend who crossed you. It could be an ex who cheated on you. It could be your father who bullied you. It could be your sister who, you know, denigrated you. It could be, you know, an old school teacher who made you feel like you would never amount to anything. It could be an old boss who never supported you and just threw you under a bus. It could be any of these things. Whatever it is for you, it's okay. First of all, acknowledge that you're carrying that stuff. And second of all, I want you to get out a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to write a letter to that person. And I do not want you to edit that letter. Think about what you're writing, criticize what you're writing, correct the spelling mistakes, anything like that. And I want you to do it by hand. That's the other thing. Hey, Chrissy, do it by hand. Because there is something about the way your thoughts flow from your brain down your arm and out the hand that is so much more powerful than just sitting on the computer and typing it. So I just want you to write, Dear Paul. Dear Paul. And I just want you to let it rip. Get it all out. No holds barred. Because no one else is going to read this. And I want you to sit there and I want you to write and write and write and write and write and write until you cannot write anything more. Just purge, baby. Just purge that stuff out of you. And when you finally feel like you've got everything out, remember there can be no judgment from you while you're doing this. Do not beat yourself up because you're feeling this way. Your feelings are your feelings, so freaking own them. Get all this stuff out when you've written as much as you can. And this is the tricky bit. Often at this point, you will be tempted to give that letter to the person you have just written it to. But if you do that, you actually then make this whole exercise about that person, when really this exercise is about you clearing out the debris that you need to clear out from inside of you so you can move forward. But the minute you give it to that other person, you make it about them and you give them all the power. And this is about reclaiming your own, right? So I want you to finish writing that letter. And do this in a safe place, you know, because there could be tears and you might want to be like gouging holes in this piece of paper while you're writing in it because you'll feel so angry. And you want to be in a safe place to do that where you're not going to be interrupted. But once you finish the letter, I wouldn't even reread it. Because the whole idea is to get this stuff out of you, not to take it back in. Finish the letter, and then you can do a few different things. You can rip that sucker up into tiny little pieces of paper, like tiny, tiny little pieces, and then throw it in the bin. You can take it out and put it in a fire-safe place and burn it. You can go and bury it in the garden. Or you can rip it up into tiny pieces and flush it down the toilet. Depending how long the letter is though, right? Because if it's a really long letter, you might have to call the plumber out and that may not be so good. That's going to be expensive. And so when you're doing the tearing up or the burying or the burning or the throwing out or the flushing down the toilet, the last step I want you to take is I want you to say, I release you. I release you. I release you. And you can say it out loud. You can say it in your head. Doesn't matter to me because this is about you. And when you do this, you are going to feel better because you will have extracted that gunk, that emotional junk from within you and got rid of it. And the more you can do that, the better. And you know what? Sometimes you might have to write multiple letters to that same person over a period of time. And you might just think you've finally processed all the stuff and the angst you had about a particular situation from your past, and then it will bubble to the surface again. And then you can just use this strategy again if you feel like it's right for you at that point to clear out more of it. And every time you do this, you are making more space for the good stuff to flow in. You're making more space for the positive stuff, for the expansive stuff. And that's what we want, right? Because holding on to that debris from our past is contaminating our future. And I don't want my future contaminated. I don't know about you. So, let me know how you go with that. I'd be interested to hear. I've certainly used this activity myself, like many times for many different situations when I've needed to get stuff out of me in a safe way. And I've always found it's been really helpful. So I hope this is helpful for you. If it is, let me know. And if you want to know more about the kind of work I do, if you have any questions about anything that I do with my intuitive mentoring programs, let me know. I'm happy to answer questions. And until next time, I hope that wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you are learning how to trust yourself more and more every day. And I can't wait to see what you do next. Take care and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.